Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill. Hey guys, how you going? My name is AussieTash. What can I say about this album? Jagged Little Pill. I'm 14, 15 years old, and this album changed my life. I absolutely loved it. It was the album of the decade, the album of a generation. In Australia, as a teenager, I absolutely loved it. So we're going to try and watch this little mini documentary on Alanis Morissette talking about Jagged Little Pill. I'm really excited to get into it. Okay, let's go. Alanis Morissette, Jagged Little Pill.
Every song on that record is a real snapshot of a period of time. But what I really appreciate about the process of creating a record is that when I go in to start writing it, and this has remained true for decades now, is that I don't know what will be written. I don't know what the themes are going to be. I have absolutely no idea until the record's finished. Even today, I have a hard time having objectivity on it, other than to say that I think Jagged Little Pill is a permission giver record. It gives permission to feel feelings and to feel anger. The unconscious is a very magical thing, and with music, all the unconscious stuff comes out. I had always wanted to move to Los Angeles. And once I did get there, there's something about the city that any idea I'd had in Canada, an idea for a song or an idea for a subject matter, or I'd present a song that I'd written that didn't rhyme, and it was not met with any kind of welcoming. So when I went to Los Angeles, any idea I had, I would run it past whomever I was with, and they would say, absolutely, let's do it tomorrow. And it was such an openness and a readiness to explore that which hadn't been explored before. So I felt like I was in the right city. There was something about being dropped by MCA Records that was inspiring. There's something about when things are challenging or difficult, there's this alchemical grind that I get into, this kind of soldier mode of pure passion. I won't stop until I meet someone who appreciates how I write. I won't stop until my vocals and this whole record is something that I would want to listen to. And I think I just had the confidence knowing that there was nothing left to lose. I had no record deal. I had no other agenda other than to express exactly what was going on in that moment.
Hold on. From what she's saying here, was she dumped by her record label in Canada? So she moved to Los Angeles. Wow. I bet they were kicking themselves in the teeth after that. Jagged Little Pill was everywhere. In Australia, man, I can tell you right now, I was a teenager. There was not one teenager that I didn't know that wasn't listening to Jagged Little Pill. They were singing Ironic. They were singing Hand Over Feet. They were singing You Oughta Know. It was on the radio everywhere, mate. That little record company in Canada, mate, I bet you they were real sorry.
19 years old. Glenn Valerian and I started writing songs together immediately after having met.
Cheers, Glenn.
Meeting Glenn was a door opening to the focus being on what I wanted to write versus entering into a studio with a would-be collaborator who has an agenda for what the song is before I even get there. When I met Glenn, I could tell that he was a sensitive, and I could tell that he had a similar temperament to mine, and I didn't feel like a freak. We'd always start our writing sessions by going to get a chopped salad at Emilio's. And during those lunch times, we would just philosophize about what was going on in politics and what we saw in the news, an article we read. We just kept talking about life and each other's lives and family and relationships. We'd start writing in the late afternoon. I'd probably do the vocal right after dinner. And then by the evening, Glenn was super quick in terms of doing his own mixes on the spot, and I would drive home that night with a song to play as I drove home.
Man, talk about nostalgic moments. I'm telling you right now, I'm singing that song in my head. The music in the background. I know this man turned 98. That's what I'm going to sing. That's ironic, mate. Oh, I'm feeling like I'm 14, 15 years old and just blasting it on the CD in my bedroom. My mum's banging on the door. Turn it down, turn it down. Nah, sorry, mum. Not going to happen. And oh my gosh, I seen Taylor Hawkins there as well. He was a drummer for Alanis Morissette way back in the day. Then he joined Foo Fighters. Died last year. Man, that was a shame. We love Foo Fighters. We love Taylor Hawkins. Yeah, I forgot he was a drummer with Alanis Morissette. Seen that old footage of him? That's pretty cool too.
Glenn and I would write the songs in a very stream of consciousness way. We recorded the songs right after we wrote them in the same day, in the same evening. 80% of the record is the original demos. Vocals are all 1 or 2 takes. We weren't trying to be too precious about everything. We didn't want to go over everything with a fine-tooth comb and lose any of the spirit.
We wrote a song called The Bottom Line and a few other titles. And then we wrote Ironic, was the first song that we wrote together that wound up being on the album. And this song was more sort of philosophical in some ways, him and I just kind of riffing philosophically. So it wasn't wildly autobiographical. I just remember thinking, okay, as much as I love the entertainment part, I really need to, there's this existential imperative to start writing about what was really going on for me. So once we wrote Ironic and recorded it, I felt like musically Glenn had already hit his stride. And I was just kind of getting into the idea of feeling safe writing about my own story. It was pretty scary, the thought of being that transparent about what was going on in my life. As a young person, I was not allowed to feel sadness, I was not allowed to feel anger, and I was not allowed to feel afraid.
Okay, so let's go back. Looking at 1995, 1996, if memory serves. She brings this album out. Alanis Morissette from Canada, obviously living in Los Angeles now, based in California. How did it go? Did Canada embrace her and go, she's Canadian, she's Canadian, she's Canadian? Or do they just go, oh yeah, that's nice, she's cool? She was incredible. Like I said, that album, it changed my life. I'm sitting here having major nostalgia moments here, man. Absolutely insane. Did she come back and tour in Canada when she was doing this album? I really have no idea. If you've seen her in concert, let me know. Unfortunately, I haven't. Bit of a shame, but yeah, like I said, this album, my gosh, was absolutely incredible. I'd rank it as one of the top 10 best albums in the 90s. Well, in my list, it was just fantastic. One of the first real Canadian musicians I listened to, really, Alanis Morissette. Sure, we all knew about K.D. Lang, a couple of other people, but yeah, Alanis Morissette, she was just, wow. She opened the door and said, mate, I'm a woman, I'm from Canada, and I can bloody sing.
Life is a funny word, sneaking up on you. It's a funny word.
When I write really angry songs about someone or a situation, I'm not writing to get back at that person. I'm writing because it's the only environment where I can get angry and not have it be destructive. It's just an expression, unjudged, uncensored. It's a very pure, sacred place to be. The song writes itself anyway, so I don't have much of a say.
These songs have always felt channeled, as though it just kind of careens right through me almost violently sometimes, to the point where I'm really exhausted after writing. And then we're done, and I play it back sometimes the next day, and I rarely remember having written them. Sometimes I'll go into a studio with a line or a preconceived idea of what I might want the song to touch on, But 50% of the time I have no idea going in, and I will bring my journal, I'll bring my journals and I'll flip through the pages and see if something jumps out at me. With You Oughta Know, I had a journal page with a few thoughts that were about the story of what became You Oughta Know.
Whenever I think of You Oughta Know, I always feel sorry for how misunderstood that song has been, and I guess indirectly or directly how misunderstood I was in the writing of that song. I wrote You Oughta Know to release how I felt at the time. I was in a very pathetically sad, vulnerable state.
And then when I went into the studio that day with Glenn, I said, I'll probably have to change that swear word, And he said, well, did you mean it? Is that what your experience was like? And is that what you would have said? And I said, yeah. He said, well, then why would we change it? And I just loved him for that. I will always love him for that. And that set the precedent pretty early on that whatever was written was written.
I had to write about how I felt at the time. I was in a position where I had put my self-esteem in a man's hands and let him do with it as he would, and inevitably when you do that, you wind up getting really hurt. And that song, when I sing it, I don't think of the rage, I think of the sadness. It's a lot easier to be angry at someone than it is to tell them that you're sad about something.
Okay, so yeah, as a woman, as a teenage girl, I found her lyrics to be so powerful and just so true and just so raw. Man, she sang her emotions and it was incredible. I think that's why it was so huge for its time, because you had a woman here and she could sing and she just let it out. She sung every single emotion, thought and feeling that she had, and it was just fantastic.
I felt so safe in the studio that I could write about all this anger that I'd been sublimating. I could write about my fears and my yearnings and what, the existential question of who am I and what do I value and what matters most to me and who are these people and how dare they do that now that I think about it. When people would say Jagged Little Pill was a brave record to write, that was not my experience. It was a relieving record to write because the sublimation was over while I was writing those songs. And then I remember the night before You Oughta Know was first played on K-Rock. We had a gig, and when we showed up, there was a lineup around the block, and people were singing You Oughta Know when we came to perform it, louder than I couldn't even hear myself. They were singing the lyrics so loudly, word for word. And within a couple of months, we went from 100-seaters to stadiums or arenas. It was a really quick shift overnight.
All right, guys, leave a comment. Jagged Little Pill. Did you own it? Tape, vinyl, CD. Did you see her in concert in Canada? How was it? I bet the atmosphere, the energy, the vibe would have been absolutely incredible. Like I said, in Australia, man, back when I was a teenager, Alanis Morissette, she was it. When you think about it, there was no girl bands back then. We had Hole, Courtney Love, Hole. We had the Cranberries. They were popping the head in and out. But Alanis Morissette, she just took the world and she grabbed it and she used her voice and her power and off she went. Her angry, grunge, emotional music was just fantastic. Jagged Little Pill, my gosh, she was just awesome. The album was awesome. I loved it.
My whole life I'd been the observer. I love just sitting and watching humanity in front of me, and all of a sudden when this record came out, I became the watchhead. All this white-hot heat attention was on me. So I remember thinking at the time, this lifestyle isn't exactly the lifestyle of my dreams.
Society sort of tells you that you are successful if you achieve this external success, if you achieve awards and a lot of money and celebrity status, that you are a great person and everything's wonderful, which
I came to find over the years to be an illusion.
When you're young, you think that that's what's going to make you happy. And as you get older, you realize, and especially if you get a little bit of it, as I did when I was younger, and it wasn't as fulfilling as I thought it would be, you learn that there are other things that you can be motivated by that are a lot more fulfilling.
I naively thought that fame would afford me so many new friends and tons of support and all these celebrities. I'd be walking off into the sunset with them with my arm around Johnny Depp, and you know, Sharon Stone would be petting my face and smooching me by the fire. You know. Anyway, that wound up not happening, although Sharon called me. But I also quickly saw that because the songs were serving people, that I could continue to do it. If there was no real service involved in all of this, it would have been a short-lived career, I think, for me.
It feels so good, so in your stomach. Wait until I say yes, you live.
The best part about songwriting for me is that certainly when I first write it, it's about my own narrative, my own perspective. And it's mine, so to speak. Once I share it publicly, it's not mine anymore, so people can interpret these songs in whatever way they want. I allowed it to be a bonding or a unification almost of me and other people. I could see that they were crying when I was crying, or they were wanting to move when I was moving, or they were raging as much as I was raging, and I felt like I belonged in a way.
It is a personal record. I think therein lies the difference between what I'm doing now and what I used to do.
As long as I finish the record and love it, if it sells 10 copies or 10 million copies, I can't control that. No one can control that.
The energy of every show that we do is so different.
I love silence right now. For obvious reasons, life's very noisy and crazy, and I like to be silent.
When I was younger and I'd be cleaning, doing chores, I would hear my dad playing Bob Dylan, and I remember random lyrics would pop out that were serviceable to me at any given moment. The thought of Jagged Little Pill being used in that way, like an oracle or a tool of divination, to the point where one lyric might serve as a mantra for an afternoon on a particularly tough day, or any lyric that would help someone through their day or through a tough time or through a self-defining time. I mean, what an honor.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. I mean, I will die happy at 123 years old knowing that these songs were used when people needed them.
Oh, yeah. Okay, guys, if you're watching this video, we've got it through. It hasn't been copy claimed. We've been allowed to listen to the music. Oh my gosh. Alanis Morissette, Jagged Little Pill. My favorite Alanis Morissette song of all time was You Learn. Absolutely loved it. And listen to what she just said. If her lyrics in any way help someone, then she's honored. I'm telling you right now, man, that album, that was just so powerful. I used that as a teenage girl, and I guarantee you, other teenage girls, they used it as well. It was just a great album and just a great time to be alive. There was so much cool music coming out, but this one particular record, like I said, it changed my life. Canada, did you embrace her? Did you embrace her angry grunge sort of music? Did you see her in concert? If you did, leave a comment. Let me know. Share your stories. That was the video for today. Like you can see, AussieTash, I absolutely loved it. Guys, if this video gets through and doesn't get copy claimed, trust me, we're going to look into Tragically Hip and some more Canadian music. All right. Cheers from down under. Take care. Bye.